Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to bring you guys a review of the Apple AirPods Pro 2nd generation. So when Apple announced these, I watched the keynote and it felt very much like an anticlimax. It felt like there were some small improvements announced, but nothing really to shout home about. And so I didn't really give them much more thought. And then the reviews began to drop and I watched some of those, and then I purchased some. And the AirPods Pro 2nd generation might be the product that Apple has done the worst ever sales pitch from, because actually there's a big difference with these. And so in this review I'm going to dive into all the things that are new and my experience of using the 2nd generation AirPods Pro. If you want to see a direct comparison video between the 1st generation and the 2nd generation, then that video is going to be dropping on his channel in about a week's time, so make sure you subscribe to be first to see that video. And you probably know this already, but let's talk about what AirPod Pros actually are. So AirPod Pros are wireless earbuds. These are the Pro version in the Apple AirPod range. And the 1st generation were already really good quality earbuds, but the 2nd generation take this to the next level. And so I want to start off by talking about the design. So the design, as you will probably notice, is pretty much the same as the 1st generation. There is a new microphone on the actual AirPods themselves, which makes them visually very slightly different. This is used for the improved transparency mode, which I'll talk about in this review. They also now come in the box with new extra small silicone tips, which gives you a choice of 4 different size tips to use with these. Of course, there's a mode in settings for the ear tip test, which allows you to make sure you're using the right size tips for your ears. Other than that, there are no visual changes to the actual AirPods themselves. The case has had a few visual changes, so let's talk about those very quickly. So firstly, on the base there is a new speaker. This means you'll notice that when you plug it in, a small noise will come out. This is also used in a new kind of Find My mode for making a noise when you're trying to locate your AirPod case. Essentially, this means the case now works the same as an AirTag does. The side of the case also has a new magnetic clasp, which is for attaching lanyards to. And so this is a good time to talk about the rest of the case specification before we move on to talk about the AirPods themselves. Now the case still has a charging port on the bottom, and this is a Lightning port, which seems slightly odd given the amount of devices Apple are already moving across to USB-C. This is even stranger in the context that the EU is making phones switch to USB-C in the next few years. However, that case can also charge via Apple MagSafe and also wireless charging. Realistically, this means that whilst it still has a port, you may actually never use it. If you do want to, the box comes with a USB-C to Lightning cable. In terms of the rest of the spec of the case is still the small pill-shaped box that fits comfortably in your pocket that we've seen with previous generations of AirPod Pros. There is that indicator light on the front and then also a reset button on the back. Now the case has an improved battery, which can help give your AirPods a total of 30 hours on one charge. This is when you have noise cancelling enabled, which means if you just have them in normal AirPod mode, you might get a bit more out of it as well. All in all, what this equates to is 6 hours from one charge of the AirPods and then several recharges thanks to that case. And then of course, as I mentioned, the case has the new Find My feature. This is really useful if you lose your case and not your AirPods themselves. Of course, it also works if your AirPods are still in the case as well. And this works in a very similar way to AirTags, whereby it basically bounces a signal off any nearby Apple devices. This means if you go on a walk and you lose your AirPod case, the odds are someone with an Apple device has been near it, and so you should be able to track it down. It's got a precision mode, which means much like the AirTags, when you get close to it, you can get really specific directions for finding your case. This means when it comes to the case, the improved battery life and the new Find My features are a very welcome update, although probably not an update that most people needed or realised you wanted. So let's talk about the AirPods themselves. So inside the AirPods you find the new H2 chip, which works with all the components inside to make sound more vivid, according to Apple. In practice, what I've found when going between the 1st generation and the 2nd generation is that more vivid sound means that your music does actually sound better, and noticeably better. This chip allows for things like noise cancellation, 3D sound, better battery life, and improved transparency mode. What this means in practice is whether you're taking calls, using noise cancellation, using transparency mode, or just listening to music, everything with these sounds crisper and clearer. In particular when it comes to listening to music and things like spatial audio, I've found that these new generation mean I'm hearing things in songs that I've never noticed before. As a musician, this is quite nerdy and I'm really enjoying it. Now when it comes to the noise cancellation mode, Apple say the new noise cancellation is up to 2 times better. Apple have also given the transparency mode an overhaul, and this is where the new microphone on the AirPods themselves come in. As part of that overhaul, Apple have named it Adaptive Transparency. What this new mode does is basically analyses the sounds around you 48,000 times a second and adapts accordingly. This means when you're in transparency mode, those microphones are always analysing what's going on around you. And part of this adaptive transparency is that whilst they're doing that, they also try and balance things out. For example, if you're out and about walking and you walk past a noisy building site, adaptive transparency will bring the noise of those drills right down to the level you had before. This means you can still hear what's going on around you without being disturbed by what's going on around you. Another review I watched basically said that with this transparency mode, you could go to a gig, put in your AirPods and have the noise level brought right down without it hindering the quality of the sound that you could hear. Of course, no one is going to go and stand at a gig with AirPods in because you'd look like an idiot. And then whilst the actual AirPods themselves look largely the same, they do now have a touch control built onto those earbuds as well. This means you still have the old features where you could press to play or pause or activate Siri or start or end a call. You can also now swipe up or down on your AirPods to alter the volume. This is a nice extra, but if I'm being completely honest, this is really fiddly to get used to and it's not something I've really used much just because it is difficult to get used to. They also have a new personalised spatial audio mode. This uses the cameras on your phone to create a custom profile based on the shape of your head and then alter your audio accordingly. In all honesty, whilst this is super cool, I don't really know how much difference it makes to spatial audio. What I can tell you is that music on the AirPods sounds really good, which is a sentence I'm going to keep saying throughout this review. And then finally for spec, for those people who like to work out with their AirPods, they are still IPX4 sweat and water resistant. This makes them great for exercising and means you don't have to worry about running in the rain in them. So let's talk about setup, which is something that's barely worth having in this review. So Apple over the last few years have massively simplified the setup process and it's really easy. You literally open the case and hold it near your iPhone. You then hit connect and you're done, and it doesn't just connect to your phone, but it then pairs it with all your other Apple devices. This allows you to seamlessly switch between your Mac or your phone or your iPad with these AirPods. And that's the setup process. So let's talk about what it's like to use these on a daily basis. Now I've had these for about a month and a half and I've been putting them through their paces and I pretty much have used them every single day. And whilst that £250 price tag is pretty big, in my opinion I actually think it's worth it. And I say that as someone who listens to music pretty much every day and someone who uses these devices every day. And so when it comes to talk about using these every single day, I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about the sound quality, I'm going to talk about transparency mode, and I'm going to talk about noise cancellation. So as you've guessed from what I've said already in this video, sound quality is amazing. I've used these in normal mode and also personalised spatial audio mode, and it doesn't matter which mode, the sound sounds great. Personally, I think the spatial audio sounds slightly better, but that is probably going to be down to personal preference. And I'm pretty sure I said this about the first generation AirPod Pros, but I'm going to say it with the second ones as well. There are parts of songs that I've been listening to for years that I'm now noticing with these AirPods. Now, in terms of genres and how they cope with different types of music, I listen to pretty much everything from kind of Taylor Swift right up to Slipknot. My running playlist also has some really heavy dance stuff on, and what I found is that it doesn't seem to matter what the genre is, it makes the music sound really good. In my opinion, there's the right level of bass and the right level of highs and mids, and it just makes everything sound great. So secondly, for what they like to use, let's talk about transparency mode. So for me, transparency mode is one of the reasons I use AirPods rather than other kind of brands of headphones. It is also the thing I find myself talking to people about the most. And that's because transparency mode on the second generation AirPod Pros is just done so well. As someone who runs, transparency mode means I can enjoy my music whilst running, but also be aware of what's going on around me, especially when I'm running kind of near roads or occasionally on roads. This is one of the things that makes the AirPod Pros unique. If you use something like bone conductor headphones, you kind of compromise on the sound quality. And then if you use something like earphones, which means you can hear what's going on around you because they're not properly in your ears, you also compromise on the sound quality. The AirPod Pros allow you to hear what's going on around you whilst experiencing great sound quality. The transparency mode also means that when you don't have music playing, maybe while you're in a shop or maybe while you're answering a phone call, you can still hear what's going on around you. I don't know about you, but when I have in-ear headphones in, if I don't have music playing, I feel like I'm in a bit of a goldfish bowl. This means it feels slightly awkward when talking on the phone, and you can't quite hear people as clearly if you're in a shop or something. Transparency mode sorts out this issue because you can still hear what's going on around you. This means on a phone call it feels like you're actually talking like you normally would be on a phone call, and you can still interact with people in the shops just by pausing your music and not having to worry about taking out your AirPods. And so thirdly, for using these on a daily basis, what about noise cancellation? Now, the existing noise cancellation on the first generation of AirPods Pro was already really good. But again, this is improved on the second generation. Now Apple say this is 2 times better, and this is a really difficult thing to gauge, but it is certainly much better. Noise cancellation is particularly good when you just want to focus on something, whether you want music on in the background or not. Now I recently got to use these on a flight, and being able to shut out the noise around me made for a much more pleasant journey. And one of the best things about noise cancellation is it's great if you're listening to music or an audiobook, but you don't actually have to listen to anything at all. You can just have the noise cancellation on and cut out some of that noise around you. And then finally, of course, they carry across a lot of the features from the first generation. So you've still got that ear tip test, you've still got the ability to just kind of say, "Hey Siri," and it kicks in, and it still reads out your notifications if you want it to while you're out and about. So all in all, what's the verdict on the AirPods Pro 2nd generation, and should you think about buying some? So the AirPods Pros 2 are a big improvement on what was already an excellent product. They sound great, they've got the transparency and noise cancellation modes, and they're just a great all-round pair of earbuds. The battery life also means that you don't really have to worry about charging them. And I found even using them every day, I only really need to charge them once every couple of weeks. What's really helpful is you do get a notification on your phone when the battery drops. And then finally, the updated case with the Find My features offers some really nice extras to have. This is the sort of feature you probably won't think about, but something you'll be very grateful for the day you do lose your AirPods. And personally, as someone who uses these every day for everything from working to working out to travelling, I think the price is absolutely worth it. And if my 1st generation AirPods Pros are anything to go by, then these are going to last really well. If you've been watching this review and you're thinking about upgrading, then I'm going to do a comparison video, as I said at the start, where I'm going to compare the 1st and 2nd generation, and hopefully that'll help you make that decision. That video is going to be out in a week, so subscribe to my channel to be first to see it. If you guys have got any questions, do stick them below. If you want to pick up a pair of the 2nd generation AirPods Pros, I have put a link below. That is an Amazon affiliate link, so if you purchase using that link, that will help this channel out and help me keep making videos for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and I'll see you guys again soon.